Hello there, hi, and welcome back. So, this is episode 3 of The Bulbs That Changed My Life. You guys probably seen the title, that is Charlize Theron's Bulb was my personal Cthulhu, and I just researched, and apparently the correct way to pronounce Cthulhu is Cthulhu, so make that of what you will. But today we're going to discuss and talk about the movie Aeon Flux from 2005, and it stars Charlize Theron. It was directed by Karyn Kusama. If you guys are not familiar with Karyn Kusama, she was the director of Girl Fight, Jennifer's Body, and also the pilot of Yellow Jackets, which is a masterpiece. So she's a pretty good director, but this was kind of a fail in her career, but we're going to discuss later what happened to this specific movie. First, I want to read this quote that I got explaining what is Cthulhu because I really need to make this joke land. Consider it a great old one within the pantheon of Lovecraftian cosmic entities. He is depicted as a gigantic entity worshipped by cultists in the shape of a green octopus, dragon, and a caricature of a human form. Just as Cthulhu is a caricature, so is every character in this movie. So, let's start. The story begins in the year 2415, 4 centuries after a devastating virus wiped out 99% of the Earth's population. Only 5 million people survived, and they all live in a single walled city-state called Brugna. The city is ruled by a scientist named Trevor Goodchild, who developed the original cure. However, within the city, citizens are going missing and people are having strange feelings. Then a group of rebels has emerged to defy the government. They are called the Monicans. So, to begin, the movie has a very brutalist, Japanese-inspired aesthetic. Originally, Karen's plan to film the movie was to shoot it in Brasilia, but ultimately the studio said that they did not have the structure to make a big production, so in the end was recorded in Germany. There is this very cool scene when people are disappearing. I was making like researches and I find out that it was recorded in the embassy of Mexico in Germany, Berlin, which is it's so crazy. So I kind of mapped out some of the places that they record because I think one of the strong points of this movie is the architectural, the imagery that it constructs. Then we have this opening scene, which is an iconic shot of a fly being caught in an eyelash. And this is a direct homage to the animation. So if you guys don't know, the Aeon Flux movie was based on the animation Aeon Flux, which was aired on MTV. It was created and directed by Peter Chung. He used to work on the Rugrats and he wanted to make something different. So he made this very leathery dominatrix cartoon. It's very disruptive. It was the base material for this adaptation, even though the story is like not very much in sync with the movie. Then we have a shot that introduces our protagonist, which is Aeon Flux, and she is a member of the Monicans, the rebel group, and she's very chic. The introduction scene is her walking in this very leathery clothes. I think, not kidding, 99% of this movie would be better if they just use lots and lots of leather because most of her clothes is not leather, it's like a synthetic fabric, almost like a lycra. I get it that like recording with leather and faux leather might be hell because it's a very difficult material to work with, but I think if her costume was leather, it would be much more impactful because the material that they use for her costume is very dull. So I think it takes out maybe of the sexiness and the appeal. The animated series is very sexy, so it's very like bodily. It has like a lot of body exposure, and Aeon is dressing almost nothing. Meanwhile, we have Charlize, who is covered like head to toe. So this is the only place where it probably could have been sexier. But then we have this one of the most iconic scenes that she ingests the pill through a tongue kiss, and we find that the pill is a communication device. So she's transported to this place where she's given her first mission. She has to disrupt government surveillance. And this shot that she's talking with the mastermind, I find out that was actually shot in a veterinary medicine college in Berlin, which was also used to record the last Hunger Game movies. So very cool fact. On the mission, the government kills her sister, Una, suspecting she was a Monican. And I think this is an appropriate time to talk about body movement. So basically, throughout the movie, Charlize moves almost as a lizard, and it's very, I don't think it's like supposed to be sexy, but it's very cool. It's very unusual, which I think is like really nice because all the choices that she's making for movements is not the best thing if you think like in reality, but it's very like serving and it gives the impression of her just being cool. This is probably the main word to describe this movie. It's cool. Everything is cool. Everything is supposed to be cool. I think this is like the only thing that it gets right. It's a really cool scenario. It has like cool movements. Doesn't make any sense, but it's still like in the end, it hits this one goal. Then, following her sister Una's death, Aeon receives a new mission. She has to assassinate the president, Trevor Goodchild. Another thing in this movie that it has like very interesting and cool technology. So it's very like freaky. The way that is given the mission is through this rose. When the pollen hits her skin, it gives her the information. We have a character that is just gonna appear that has body alteration. So she does not have feet, she has hands as feet. And then later on, she also uses like a part of her skin as a healing patch for a wound, kind of like cauterizes the wound. She has also like macro lens in her eyes, and they also use like killing cacao pods, which I think is really nice. They have like a little obsession with cacao pods form, which I think is cool. So then we meet Sithandra, which is recruited to go on a mission with Aeon. This is the woman that has two pair of hands, so she does not have feet, she has hands. Then we have probably the most famous scene in the whole movie, that they are sprinting through a deadly government garden. Here we have the shooting cacao pods. The grass is made of blades, so Aeon's get like really close and she opens her leg as to stop her from hitting the blaze face on. And every time like I see this scene, sometimes like it hits on those movie cuts and movie shorts. It always has like 800,000 views or like a million views. So I think cool for cool is cool. And I think this is a way that you can embrace this movie. Everyone knows it's a bad movie. Everyone hears talk about it and everyone says like, oh, this is a bad movie, but it's cool. It's a cool experience. Eventually, Eon breaks into the base. When she gets into the base, you have like this very cool scene with this corridor. I found out that it's a great wind tunnel in an aerodynamic park in Berlin, and then I'm gonna pronounce this and I may be butchering the German language, in Berlin Adlershof or Adlershof. It's a very like futuristic, I think, approach, and it's just like beautiful. When she finally confronts Trevor, he calls her Catherine. It causes her to freeze before she is knocked unconscious by his guards, and then she wakes up in captivity. And she uses the microlens in her eyes to discover that the water they gave her has a liquid on it, and she takes a sample, and this is like a very cool thing. She keeps the sample in the heel of her shoe. Art. When she was invading the government, she was spreading these mini things out of her ring, and later we find out that it's mini explosives that she can activate when she whistle. All of the parts that was spreaded, they come to her and they explode a wall so she can escape. When she manages to escape, she finds that the liquid in the water is actually a secret message from Trevor asking her to meet him in secrecy. After the meeting with Trevor, they have sex. She chokes him and she discovers a secret lab, and in the lab she finds a picture of herself bobless. We know there's something there, right? Because if you do not have this bob, she has the coolest bob in the whole world. Meanwhile, we learn that Trevor's second in command, a guy named Oren, is actually trying to overthrow him. And then we find that the original virus cure made everyone infertile. So for the last 400 years, the entire population of Bregna has actually been cloned repeatedly, which is a very like constant theme because in the Resident Evil video, Alice is also cloned. So what was happening in the 2000s with cloning? They also explain in the movie is that the DNA of the population is stored in this airship that is like a memorial for the people who died 400 years ago, which is in 2011. By the way, Trevor tells Eon that Una was killed by Oren because she was one of the first successful subjects to be cured of the infertility and was naturally pregnant. So now Eon's like pissed, and we find that Oren has basically been suppressing the natural births from occurring to maintain the status quo and rule forever. Because while everyone has been assigned to new families, Oren and Trevor, they have been raising themselves to keep in control. But Trevor genuinely wants to find a cure for the infertility and for the memory problems that people have been dealing with for the past years. Then Aeon randomly decides that humanity needs to move on. So she argues that life only has meaning because we are meant to die. And then her goal becomes to kill Oren and destroy the airships that keeps the city DNA to basically be like, as a population, if we're meant to die, we have to die, which comes actually like out of nowhere because her main goal was find what happened to her sister, and she finds that, well, since her sister was killed, her DNA has been reassigned to a new couple and she was reborn as their baby. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh yeah, we need to end this cycle. Then we reach like the end of the movie and we have this climatic battle. She destroys the memorial and breaks down the walls that were protecting Bregna from the forest that is growing outside. And the movie ends with the city finally free, question mark, question mark. So the plot is kind of, I don't think it's like a really deep plot. You guys can see I basically explain it in like, I don't know, 15 minutes. It's a very like weird plot and a weird movie because the characters are not characters. They have like no emotion at all. So that's why I think it resonated so much, like the coolness of the and the imaginative process behind the movie more than the story itself. You know, it's one of those situations where it's like beautiful colors, beautiful gowns on your TV, and you just gotta enjoy like the flow. Because Charlize is like, it's not good in this one, and she's a great actress. Some points that are worth talking about. The movie, it feels very choppy. So originally, I'm gonna link two articles, one of the BuzzFeed that was an interview with Karyn Kusama, and the other one's from AV Club, and they discuss like the process of making these movies. So basically, the movie was supposed to be a 2 hours long, challenging sci-fi romantic thriller with the thoughtful pacing of a highbrow Asian martial arts film. She says that when she was filming like the action sequence, they were supposed to be like this very long scenes. But what happened was when she finished the movie, the CEOs of Paramount was changed, and they were like, yeah, we don't want a 2 hours long art movie. So they basically like chopped the movie, and it got, no kidding, like 70 minutes. And then they realized they screwed up the editing, and they called her back to re-edit the editing. Something that she says is like they did not allow her to be alone in the editing room. There was always like some producer or someone, because they were so afraid that she was going to turn the movie on the original idea of being this very like artsy and cool, because the direction that they wanted to give was, okay, so Matrix and Resident Evil and Underworld, they are successes, so you kind of need to do the movie on this lane. And this is why it's very bad, because it makes like no sense. The action scenes are terrible. You cannot understand what's happening, and you can sense in the dialogues that they were supposed to be like this long and very scarce dialogues, and basically like people can't shut up, but they just repeat the same thing every 3 times in a scene, and you're like, I get it, you don't need to repeat, the plot is not complicated. Karyn also says that they were so afraid that the movie was read as feminine, that it had like sentimentality and romance, that they just like destroyed the movie, even destroying a character who was supposed to be queer, and they just cut it out every mention of it. So if you click this video, you've probably seen like 100 other videos, because I watch those videos as well, where people discuss how bad this movie is and how bad it is compared to the series. I didn't grow up with the series. The first thing that I saw of Aeon Flux was the movie, and I watched it as a kid, and I thought it was really cool. So it just worked as a door for me to research more. So figure it out, like what brutalism was, who Karyn Kusama was, what Aeon Flux was. And I find it interesting because I feel like this is one of those movies that people, if you like consider the movie to be good, you're seen as a bad person because everyone tells that it's a bad movie. But art is pretty much like subjective. So now we have like this very like clean movies who you can't even see what's happening in the background, but they are like grounded, so they are good. And this movie is like very imaginative. It's not grounded at all. And it's cool for coolness, you know? If you happens to enjoy an hour and 30 watching this movie, but you say, "Oh, I like this movie," people are gonna come at you and be like, "Oh, so you're like a bad person because you had fun watching this movie." The AV Club article, they have like this very good quote that I think really summarizes Karyn's career because after this movie bombed and flopped so hard, she even says that she was considering like not putting her name in the movie. She did not recognize it, but ultimately she chose to put it because she was like, I don't want the whole team to feel like we work for nothing. So she went there and with her with her hat up, she says that in the release of the movie, she drank 10 vodka martinis just to be able to watch the movie. And then after that, her career got basically like nuked until she directed Jennifer's Body years later. And she was one of the promising new directors because she had just came out of Girl Fight, was a huge success. And the AV Club, they opened the discussion telling that, and I quote, Ryan Reynolds starred in four critically reviled comic book movies before getting the chance to make Deadpool. Meanwhile, two women, Karyn Kusama and Charlize Theron, careers basically got nuked, and they were seen like really bad because they made a movie. And in the end, like we cannot even say that it was a bad movie because it was not the movie that was supposed to be released, that was supposed to be written. So I think this is like a really important topic to discuss. Okay, so notes. I think if this movie was shot in Brasilia would be so cool. So cool. Just gonna put like some images. If you guys don't know the story of Brasilia, it's basically that it was a city developed to be the government central in Brazil. So it's everything's like planned and it's planned by this famous Brazilian architect called Oscar Niemeyer. It's just very futuristic. I've been to Brasilia like a couple of times. It's really weird because basically one part of the city is planned, but city grew all around it so people could live because the city is like really small and it's designed in the form of a plane. People who live like all around, it's basically like normal cities again. So it's a very like dystopic feeling when once you get like to the main city, which is called the pilot plan. When you get to the pilot plan, it's so weird because everything has like order. And then you go outside and you're like, oh, this is Brazil again. I think this movie really resonated with me as a kid because one, it's really cool. Like Charlize for herself, she's a very cool actress, and this whole movie is just a vibe, you know? It's something about, again, the same as Alice and Isabel. It's just like women trying to survive and everyone pointing fingers at them and saying like, "Oh, you're wrong, you know, you should like just stay quiet and do not interfere." And they are like fighting in some capacity. And then when I got to research, finding out all of the backstory and what happened to Karen's and Charlize's career, it's just so painful to know what Hollywood does with female directors and female actresses. Karen even says that she considers herself to be like a weird person. She's not like very loud, she's not outspoken. And she comments that if you're a girl and you are like that, you're seen as weird. But if you are a male and you act the same way, people think you're mysterious. So I feel like this is really like encapsulate. And this movie, although it is a travesty, it's really weird. I still find enjoyment and I can see like past these things and find things that I find cool, which in the end for a movie is your main goal. You know, you want to have fun watching a movie, even if it's bad. Looking into this specific angle, I think it's a really an hour and a half well spent because the images are beautiful, the sets are beautiful, the clothing are okay, character design is very soft. leathery. The animated series, they go like very hard and the body shapes are weird and it's just weird. And I think they didn't want to do that. Karyn says that she was more focused on the romantic aspect of the movie, and this was basically like chopped in the end. Like, I even forgot to mention that in the movie, we find out that Eon and Trevor were a couple in our times, 2011, because forgettable. But again, I think this is one of the only videos that have a counterpoint of someone saying, "Oh, I really like this movie." I'm doing research, everyone was like just throwing shit at this movie, and I just want to like to point that I think it's a really fun movie, it's like it's a good movie for you to watch like scrolling on TikTok and just seeing like beautiful images. And movie can have that function. It's just, I think, like a cautionary tale for how Hollywood works with women and this ideas that do not fit in, which is a topic that we have been discussing on the first episode, basically. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I was really excited to talk about this one, and I can only like thank you guys. I think the last time I checked, I had like 10 subscribers, which I know is not like huge, but honestly, I did not even thought that someone's gonna watch. So thank you very much for being here and drop a comment just to, talk about if you find the movie shitty or if you find the movie cool. I don't know. And drop a like if you liked it. Drop a dislike if you disliked it. And I hope I see you guys again soon. Thank you so much for being here again, and bye bye.